Now, have you ever watched an anime that seemed like the anime of the year due to the amount of hype it received? But after some days, everyone just kinda seemed to forget about it, like it just never even existed in the first place? Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of anime that fell off harder than the expectations of fans from the anime adaptation of Berserk. So today, I have the top 10 anime that fell off pretty damn hard. So to start off the list, we have the anime that everyone loved when it was first released, and it is now none other than My Hero Academia. I'm sure a lot of people will already fight me on this one, but hear me out here. A superhero world where heroes are public idols and the villains are very interesting. My Hero Academia follows Deku, a quirkless kid in a superpowered world who inherits the best hero's power. And he trains at the Superhero Training Academy when puberty and heroism collide. Now, the first couple of seasons of this show were without a doubt brilliant. But as the story progressed, it became quite repetitive, and not to mention uninteresting, and that's especially due to the prolonged and slow-paced Paranormal Liberation War arc, which dragged on without much progression. Characters like Mineta irritated fans with his over-the-top pervy intentions, bro is Jiraiya, on steroids. Also, the overexposure of characters like Bakugo and Todoroki overshadowed others, leading to uneven character development. And after the Lemillion PowerPoint fight, I was certain the show was pretty cooked. But of course, the My Hero Academia fans didn't care anything about this. They were busy attacking the author and making the weirdest ships in anime. But even after all that, the latest season is, well, it's actually looking pretty promising. This season somehow revived the viewer's interest by delivering intensive battles, significant character growth, and high-stakes plot developments. The focus on fan-favorite heroes, improved pacing, and emotional depth re-engaged viewers. Now the anticipation built around pivotal story arcs and visually stunning animation further rekindled excitement for the series. And next up at number 9, we have the biggest idol anime of all time, Oshinoko. Now this show is about a doctor who gets reincarnated as the baby of his idol crush. He navigates fame, secrets, and the dark reality behind idols with his twin sister, who also reincarnated. Now, no one will ever disagree here that the first episode of the show was one of the best hooker episodes ever, and fans were laughing, crying, and were heartwarmed in a single episode. But as good as that sounds, that wasn't the best case for the show, because the amount of hype that single episode got was almost impossible for the rest of the season to beat. It nearly got the same hype as Attack on Titan and Jujutsu Kaisen, and the banger opening added oil to the fire. But Oshinoko was miles away from those types of shows. It was a grounded slice-of-life show that promised the viewers an entertaining watch. So to nobody's surprise, the hype of the anime after the first episode fell off. And it fell quite hard. But that doesn't mean this is an anime that you should skip. I actually recommend you go watch this one. Then at number 8, we have an anime that fell off quite slowly compared to other shows. And it is Psycho-Pass. Now, Psycho-Pass is about a future where cops use sidekick mood rings to catch criminals, and our rookie main character teams up with brooding enforcer to chase baddies before their stress levels spike. It's a dystopian world, but with better gadgets and haircuts. Now, this show didn't fall off too hard like the other shows on this list, but everyone who has watched every season or movie of Psycho-Pass will definitely agree that season 1 of this show was way better than any of the sequels of the series, with better character moments and better writing. Season 1 is in its own league, so with stakes already higher than a mountain, Season 2 failed to satisfy their fans. Now to be specific, the show lost all its hype due to the lackluster Sibyl system that was revealed in the absence of a charismatic villain like Shogo. The plot became less engaging, focusing on action over the original's philosophical depth, leaving fans disappointed with the direction it was heading. The recent movie Psycho-Pass Providence was not that bad, but it still failed to surpass the first season. So if you're planning on watching this show, be a little bit conservative while watching the sequels. But by the way, this is just a little side note, but the soundtrack of Psycho-Pass is one of my personal faves. Then at number 7, we have one of the most popular isekai out there, which is Sword Art Online. A show where a psycho traps gamers in a VR RPG, where dying in-game means dying in the real world. Our main character, a lone wolf player, must beat 100 levels to escape. Now, even if you are a hater of this show, you cannot deny the fact that the show got an insane amount of attention during its initial seasons. And for once, I understand why that happened. And that's because I enjoyed it myself. So the real question here is, where is all that hype now? It vanished into thin air like it never even existed in the first place. Well, everyone who watched Sword Art Online in the first place has to agree that this show should have ended with Aincrad because it had a compelling and self-contained storyline with clear stakes and emotional depth. But they decided to keep it going, which was not a good choice because subsequent arcs like Fairy Dance diluted the initial impact with weaker plots. Not to mention less engaging antagonists and an inconsistent world building, making the original arc's conclusion a more satisfying end to the series. But still, there is hope at the end of the tunnel, as we have been getting more of Aincrad in the SAO feature movies. So here's to hoping that ends well. Next up at number 6, we have an anime that was carried out by a single character, and it is, of course, Darling in the Franxx. Now, Darling in the Franxx features teens piloting mechs in awkwardly suggestive positions to fight monsters. Now, Hero teams up with Zero Two, a pink-haired rebel with horns, in order to fight these said monsters. Now, the thing about this show is that it can turn from a very humorous comedy to a very dark show really quickly. But the hype this show got initially was definitely from Zero Two. Still, that doesn't mean the show wasn't impressive. With stunning animation, an awesome soundtrack, and an exceptional story, this show had all the components that could turn into a really remarkable show. But things really fell off towards the end. The story went completely out the window because the aliens were the bad guys. Zero Two turned into a huge mech and went off to space to fight. I mean, it was so absurd it almost turned into a joke. Everything else about the story was great except that ending. Then at number 5, we have a show that shouldn't have been on this list, but it is Rising of the Shield Hero. Honestly, I'm pretty bummed that this one ended up on this list, but the main character gets summoned to another world and is handed the worst weapon, a shield. Framed, shamed, and broke, he becomes an isekai underdog, leveling up with a raccoon girl sidekick. And that's all for the recap. I'm not saying any more. This show was probably one of the most promising isekai ever when it first released. And the story felt refreshing, the animation was nice, and the characters were awesome and relatable. And that sweet, sweet revenge arc is probably something fans would remember for a long, long time. But when the second season came, things were different. Quite different, as a matter of fact. The story was rushed, and the characters were not fleshed out properly, which made the dramatic moments really boring, and was definitely lacking the emotional intensity and cohesive narrative of Season 1. Now, I'm not sure what really happened all throughout that season, but I hear that there was a lot of stuff happening behind the studio for all the main reasons for why this show ended up dropped off in the first place. But despite that fact, for some reason they had literally no build for the final boss. And this completely ruined the momentum that the show had going for the first season. So when the third season decided to make a comeback, it was a too deep hole to climb out. But I'm still hoping for a resurgence. Then we have the high school anime everyone loved back in the day, Tokyo Revengers. Now, Tokyo Revengers follows a crybaby who time travels back to his teen days to save his ex and fix his gang-filled past. Now, with its interesting plot, this show grabbed a lot of hype when it was first released. Everyone was talking about it. It was like the next big anime that will take over the world. But after some time, everyone, well, they just forgot about it. With plot holes bigger than the 5th Hokage's 106 in a rush story, the anime dug a hole for itself. And you have time traveling in your story, and you handle it like this? I mean, it's not awful, but it's quite underwhelming. And talking about underwhelming, the ending of the manga of the series is nothing the fans would brag about. So, waiting for a comeback for the show is not something I would do. But some fans of the show are still adamant that the show is still one of the best animes out there. And I personally believe that they will stand with that conviction and die on that hill. And to which I respect that determination, just not their opinion. Then at the third spot, we have an anime that had an unexpected blow-up, which was Wonder Egg Priority. Here in this anime, we follow a girl who cracks open magical eggs to save friends in a dream world. It's like Pokemon, but instead of cute Pokemon, you get emotional baggage and existential crises. This anime blew up in a very short time after its release, mostly because of its nature of exploring deep themes uniquely. This made a lot of people talk about it, and the show seemed to deliver on the hype for the first couple of episodes with great story arcs and character moments. But then, things didn't go so smoothly. Soon after the initial episodes, the story, well, it started to crumble. It didn't make any sense. Like, random twists and plot points were thrown in that didn't connect with the audience or the story at all. But still, the fans were hopeful of getting a good ending, and forgot all the mishaps that happened before them. But all that hope received was an hour-long episode that made no sense at all. And almost all of it was basically a recap. So an anime with great potential that didn't know what to do with its own story. Now again, the studio had issues behind the scene because there was drama, but still, something amazing could have happened and it became a disappointment. And as for the runners-up, we have one of the most disappointing manga adaptations ever made. And yes, you probably know what I'm talking about. It is Tokyo Ghoul. A show about ghouls, creatures who look like humans from the outside, but have an enormous appetite for human blood. Wait, in that case, wouldn't they just be vampires? Anywho, we follow our main character who just somehow managed to get messed up in the most messed up world of both ghouls and humans. Just because this dude wanted to get laid. Well boys, take that with conviction as a lesson. Save yourself for God, otherwise if you lose your virginity too quickly or too soon with the wrong person, it just goes right to hell. Now, that being said, the first season of Tokyo Ghoul was actually really good. Yes, they took some shortcuts and censored the best moments from the manga, but still, it didn't interfere with the overall feel of the show. But then came the second season, that damned forgotten child, and for some damn reason, they just decided to go with an anime original story and screw up the manga. But still, decided to arrive at the same conclusion the manga had. So when the season finale happens, everything looks just like the manga, except for all the character development and story arcs that just doesn't exist. It's like they are fighting for the sake of fighting. After all the backlash, they again decided to return to the manga from season 3, but at that point it was already too late. The fans were gone, and if you are one of those who have dropped this anime, honestly good, just don't miss out on the manga. Honestly, the manga is phenomenal. And at the top spot, we have the show that had the worst sequel in all time of anime. And of course, it is none other than The Promised Neverland, a show about adorable orphans living their regular lives in a blissful home, loved by everyone and anyone. But then they ever so elegantly discover that they are actually a 5-star dinner course for demons. So the main characters decided to escape this butcher house, and little do they know the things waiting for them are not so friendly. Now, by all means, the first season was brilliant. It was honest to the manga it was adapted from, the story arcs were fleshed out, the characters were done justice, and the animation, the soundtrack, just almost everything was just perfect. But then when it came down to the second season, oh gosh, where should I start? The makers were like, we don't want to drag this show on for another 2 to 3 years, let's just wrap up this season and call it good. So they casually decided to skip over major arcs and character-defining moments just to end this show in one season. And the animation for the most part was just a slideshow. A slideshow, making it a nightmare almost for every fan involved, and to that point, everyone just wants to forget. Remembering this now, I'm worried about the second season of Heavenly Delusions. Hopefully they don't mess that one up, good grief. Well, that's the list, guys, so if you guys were able to make it this far, please be sure to comment down below on what shows you think fell off. And if you liked this video and would like to see more, then hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press on that bell icon, and set us all to be notified about all our latest new videos. And as for now, I'll catch you later. See you in the next one.